Alright, while we're waiting for the bibbits and the bits and the bytes there,
One of the most unusual objects
get
in the
into the
universe
quarks.
are the neutron stars.
Okay.
Their densities are predicted to be
Here.
over 100 quadrillion kilograms per cubic meter.
I
whereas
don't
the
believe
Earth
so.
has a
Well,
density
maybe.
of just 5,000
When you think about it,
kilograms per
actually, it
cubic
would be
meter.
a
This is
zero
because the
generation,
entire
or
mass
excuse
of
me,
star
a
is compressed into an object the
fourth
size of an
generation star,
asteroid.
or fourth population 4-star.
However, a
Because
recent finding
if
might
you had
suggest that
durium,
the quark
tritium,
star, a
and
new
hydrogen
kind of star,
as the
actually
base
exists.
quarks that kind of went into
Despite
that, then
the
you're
fact
really
that the
just
properties
looking
of a
at a
neutron
reaction
star's
that really
superdense
hasn't
matter,
covered
such as its
all the way to
density and
hydrogen
pressure,
yet to
cannot
make that
currently be
nucleus
determined by
and the
scientists
electron
using their current
do the
knowledge of
dance that it
particle
needs to
physics.
do
A number
inside of that
models for
reactor,
the
because that would be
neutron
the
star's internal structure have been developed that are
periodic table,
consistent with
the
astronomical
standard model, what's up,
observations.
what's down, that calculation for
Modern
what
astrophysics states that stars with
x
masses between 8
in
and
a
30
fractal
solar
level to anything that would
masses,
be
or one
a
solar
fifth
mass
popul
equal
or
to the
population
mass of our
5-star.
sun, in
That
their
is to say that it was
evolutionary
just
course
made
with
out of the
supernova
material out of one of
explosion,
those concepts to
leaving
say
behind a neutron
that there would be
star with
something in a
mass
sixth,
between
and you think about the
1.1 and
fractals
2.4
of
times that
a
our
2,
sun.
3, 4 kind
When a
of
star
deal. The
runs
thing
out
this
of
is,
fuel for the
you'll get
fusion
into that
reactions
condensate,
occurring
because
at
this
its
is what I
core,
want to
it
drop out of
becomes
solution.
unable to withstand
Could be a
gravity and
chemical
suffers a
reaction according to
catastrophic
snap
core
theory
collapse,
right now for the
which
Nobel
results in
Prize,
these
or
explosions.
super
As the
determinism in the
pressure
way
inside
of
the core
bank
increases,
fractaling
atomic electrons
under,
are
like, you
forced
wouldn't
into
just do
protons and
banks out to
converted
that
into
point in that
neutrons,
system.
which
There's still a
results in a
mathematical
massive stream of
advantage to certain
neutrinos and
structures
gravitational
that
waves.
keep it nice and tight.
Up to a few percent of the speed of light is the velocity at which
Well,
star stuff
I mean,
are
Laffer
expelled.
curve is gonna, everything's waves,
Lighter
so
stars,
when it's
like
on
the
a throw
sun,
or there's push
collapse
to
into white
continued
dwarfs, which are
where
also
stuff is
compact
dropping, they still
objects, but not
probability.
as
If
dense
it's
as
still doing
neutron
that, it
stars.
will react like this. The
Heavier
pressure
stars
gauge will be
eventually
in a
become
form of a
black
chart
holes.
that works a certain way
Up until
based on how
recently,
you're adding
all
those
known
parts
neutron
together,
stars
because
had
if
masses that were
solutions
consistent
or
with theoretical
quarks
predictions,
or
falling between 1.2
um,
and 2.3
super
solar masses.
Bose-Einstein condensates, drill sergeants,
Scientists
whatever you want to call
reported the
them.
discovery of a neutron
You
star
want to be
with a mass
able to
considerably below the predicted
show that
lower
quark
limit in a
star.
recent
It's a
study that was
outside
published in
category
Nature
potentially.
Astronomy.
I would factor it again as an older variable that hadn't been really noticed through certain theses, much like some of the old schoolers, because, well, that's going to be a telling indicator of some of the signal emitted from this is what you would get from Science Tech Med here. Usually we're running a lot of standard models, myself included, to that system, but I'll do dumb stuff, like I'll forget the simplest stuff sometime, but I'll tell you 1.5 mega electron volts, 5 sigma, 3.145 pi. When you get into other types of FX, function of the dominion, linear equations, and things like that, you need certain gear. You're going to need to take your time chiseling out how you want the storyboard to go, or the measurements in that field, because not only is that a spectrum of it, when it starts to polarize through that by distance or time or composition or frequency there, about why the moments are what they are, how beast of a magnet would you need to do to shape stone like that, or ultrasonic, some wave on polarization or something like that. But I've seen big saws, and I've cut 5 foot, I've seen big 11/6s cut rock, wire saws do it, when you think about the chainsaw and logging out some eagle out of a big log, if you had a diamond blade on a chainsaw, or even a tracer saw doing it right, something that's slow enough to do, but you're willing to do it, that could still figure the timelines out. And it looks complicated, but by today's standards, we still kind of have it. It's very complicated when you think about the geometry that some of the math people will talk about down there, but they're also running the crypto too. But it's also a model of how crypto will become if things get changing, because one of them quark stars pops in there and they can't integrate it into the system, right? Because that's out there. Short of it being Nemesis or just catching fusion on a way that they didn't understand Armageddon, like that's Apophis up there. We got nukes. Seems like a good reason to have them instead of the propaganda based on the model. It's in your neighborhood, you get to put that one up there. Who's in charge of nuclear arms at that point in time to keep the Skynet running there, or whatever MIB is doing.
Despite the fact
Neural
that
net.
up and down quarks make up neutrons, it is thought
In that way,
their heavier
calculations
counterparts
based,
can
remember, it
potentially
all
develop
kind of
into
goes to
quark
that,
star.
that base sequence.
This may be
It's all
because
folded
under
up
the
and
extreme
crumpled up. The
pressures and
topology
temperatures at the
doesn't really
centers of
need to
these
be that
fictitious
because we're going to
quark
square that
stars.
off and figure out certain
Strange quarks
areas
are
based on
formed
those
as a
increments. And
result
then
of
I
the
know what that is. I
interaction
kind of cut
between
it off.
released
There's the
up
wave
and down
function right
quarks,
there. There's an early
giving
little
these stars
base
the
on
moniker strange
10 to
stars.
the negative 34,
If
something like
stars
that,
are
to the
actually
Big Bang
possible,
level
and the
of
object
right
found in
there.
the current investigation
We could
proves
start
to
that
be
right
one
now,
of
and
them,
if that
the
way, it's going to
discrepancy
divert
between
anywhere.
theory and
Anything it links on
observation
is subject,
will no
and then
longer
we're hitting
exist
causal
because
to
the minimum mass
triangulations,
limit
anything under
described
sector
above only
analysis of
applies
1
to
and 2,
neutron stars,
which
not
could
quark
be
stars.
anything. It could be a subset of the
existence of
most
unusual
basic
stars
subsets
and the
in the
results of this
CPI,
study
right?
will
You're
hopefully be
saying
supported
milk,
by other
bread, and whatever.
astronomical
Well, that's
observations
fair,
in
and
the
that's going to be a
future.
very general
In
system to work,
addition to
but
being
there's
an amazing new
other time
discovery in
topologies
and of
where
itself,
that's in there,
this
and
will
sometimes
provide
that gets
researchers
involved
a
with
better
having
understanding
two
of the very
people, two
nature
big
and
dogs in the
behavior of
room
quarks,
about
which we are only now
astrophysics or
beginning to comprehend.
salty nuclear soups and on the spacecraft here, about dropping certain things out of solution just by being around it. And if you're not aware of that, it could be weird in town. Just saying.